My path wasn't what anyone expected, shattering expectations. Before I continue understand this, I must be incredibly, agonizingly vague about many details. Anyone deeply embedded in cybersecurity or government knows precisely why I'm cagey. I finished high school in the late 2000s. College simply didn't suit my restless spirit, it craved a more profound, real purpose. So after earning my associates, I eagerly enlisted just as I'd always envisioned. The Navy welcomed me into its demanding ranks. In basic, I qualified for special warfare. I then started SEAL training, a truly brutal gauntlet designed to break men. I didn't finish it. That immense physical and mental toll broke me, pushing my very being to its absolute limits. But one door closing merely opened another, clearer path. I became a SWCC, a Special Warfare Combatant Craft Crewman. I proudly embraced my distinctive role as a dirty boat guy. We are the men you see in movies, arriving just in time with fast boats, blasting heavy, sustained firepower to extract our boys from absolute hell. Sometimes we work with hellos or bravely man them ourselves. Most often, we patrolled Iraq's dangerous, winding riverways, a tense, unceasing vigil silently begging for an enemy to engage us. My military career, while filled with unique experiences, often felt like a pursuit of elusive, thrilling challenges, something to truly break the monotony. The reality, however, often fell far short of the thrilling image I'd envisioned. Despite my mastery of small watercraft, extensive diving operations, and rigorous aircrew duties, I never experienced the intense, high-stakes operations often associated with SEAL teams. Though I was assigned to a SEAL team and involved in highly sensitive operations, the specifics remain classified, a secret I must forever keep. There was no dramatic door-kicking, no critical breaches, none of the legendary team action I had hoped for. Actual combat, intense firefights were surprisingly rare, occurring only on a handful of tense occasions throughout my service. A stark contrast to the fabricated heroics often paraded by former operators online. True valor often remains unspoken, carried by those who truly bore the burden. My life took an abrupt turn after 8 years when an injury forced me away from my boat duties. This unexpected transition led me to spend my final 4 years of a 12-year career deep within special warfare, focusing intensely on cyber-oriented operations. With my service complete, I retired, securing my VA benefits and embarked on an academic journey, dedicating several semesters to hone the crucial skills required for a future in cybersecurity. A path I felt compelled to follow. I've earned my certifications and have been navigating the private sector since early 2019, even founding my very own LLC. Yet a memory from early 2016 still lingers, a period that reshaped my life. I had returned to my hometown, a community nestled near a significant naval base. After changing my career path and facing medical leave due to an injury, I found myself with unexpected time on my hands. This allowed me a precious opportunity, reconnecting with a high school sweetheart. For several months, we had been dating, rekindling a truly deep connection. She had been my absolute best friend during our formative years, and I still regret how I foolishly missed the chance to take her to junior prom. After graduation and my subsequent enlistment, we drifted apart, our lives diverging. However, fate intervened, bringing us back together. In the intervening years, she had become a mother to an absolutely adorable 3-year-old girl. The child's father was notably absent from the picture, truly his loss, as this little girl was a pure gem, a beacon of joy. Our bond grew swiftly and profoundly. Within a mere couple of months, her occasional sweet calling of daddy would send my heart soaring with an indescribable warmth and hope. It was a beginning, a fragile yet beautiful new chapter. I had carried feelings for her mother for years, and our reconnection was like an explosion, reigniting old passions with incredible force. For months, we were inseparable. Our days were spent on joyful playdates with her child, our nights a thrilling secret world of high school-level passion after the little one was in bed. We texted constantly at work, exchanged funny memes on social media, all the dorky, cheesy, deeply loving gestures that, for a man in his 30s, might seem embarrassing to recall now. But it was real, we were genuinely, unequivocally in love. This was a love I had never known before, unlike anything that had touched my life. I'd faced true danger, been shot, stabbed, my leg shattered by a 7.62 round. Yet none of that terrified me as much as the profound, beautiful vulnerability of this new love. I was completely captivated, utterly lost in her. Then a dark cloud appeared, a complication. Her brother, a lanky, crude, self-proclaimed gangster, whiter than driven snow, yet exuding a repulsive, truly menacing aura. He suddenly arrived, crashing on her futon, an immediate disruption to our fragile peace. I remember the night vividly, a moment that cast a long, ominous shadow over our blossoming relationship. We were barely a year and a half in when the detestable individual I'm about to describe made his unwelcome return. This man, a true piece of work, also carried the cruel irony of being the kiddo's godfather, her supposed uncle. He shared no blood with my girlfriend or her child. He was simply a former addict, a mere shadow of a man who'd once worked at the same Target as she. He had a habit of collapsing, feigning so-called low blood sugar, though I knew exactly what that meant. He was crashing hard from his latest fix. On one such occasion, my girlfriend, with her boundless empathy, offered him a cheeseburger and a soda. In his world, that act of kindness was akin to being handed a fortune. He became eternally indebted, her self-appointed right-hand man. Thankfully, he never harbored romantic feelings for her, preferring company that mirrored his own wretchedness. She called him brother, he called her sister, naturally solidifying his uncle's status to the little one, but the true nightmare unfolded when he appeared on our doorstep in the dead of night. My gut screamed a warning. A cold, terrifying dread settled deep within me. This homeless, jobless, utterly feckless idiot was moving in. Our friendship commenced with an immediate jarring dissonance, for I met him with an unconcealed hostility. The memory still makes my skin crawl, a chilling reminder of a night that shook my sense of security to its core. My girlfriend and I were in bed, our child sleeping peacefully between us when a distinct bump echoed from the living room. My heart pounded. No pets, no explanation, only a stark, terrifying realization someone else was here. Recent break-ins had plagued her complex, painting a grim picture. My hand flew to my .45, a justifiable defense in a world suddenly turned hostile. I crept through the darkness, every nerve alight. What I found was a grown man, a complete stranger, lurking in her apartment. The .45 was instantly in his face, my voice a low, dangerous growl. "What the hell are you doing here?" He was a blatant trespasser, his presence an unforgivable violation of our sanctuary, a direct threat to my family's safety. The confrontation was raw, primal. I didn't live there officially, my studio near the base offered independence. Yet I stayed often. It was convenient, yes, but more importantly, my presence brought her and our child a much-needed sense of security amidst the recent burglaries. It felt like a protective duty. Despite this, I held no authority, no say over who occupied her home. This man, this young whippersnapper, as I privately seethed, was now somehow a permanent fixture. After that horrifying standoff, with my 1911 inches from his nose, I found myself in an impossible position. To placate him, to buy some semblance of peace, I reluctantly loaned him my PS3 and a spare television. It was an act born of bitter resignation. Fuck him if he thought he was going to find a job. He merely settled in day after day, smoking weed out on the balcony, his utter idleness a constant, infuriating insult. My fury simmered, a silent resentment for this uninvited guest whose presence polluted our peace. I forgave the immediate threat, but I could not forget the audacity of his continued presence. This was far from over. I kept quiet for a long time, but this story still ignites a simmering rage within me. He was perpetually affixed to the balcony, lost in digital battles of need for speed and COD on my PlayStation. This freeloading adult brazenly treated my girlfriend as his personal live-in mother. He expected her to cook his meals upon her return from work, to meticulously handle his laundry. He once had the sheer audacity to ask her to relace his sneakers, declaring, "She does it better," a demeaning request that burned into my memory. At 23, he was a total deadweight. Beyond being a glorified babysitter for our child when my medical leave ended and we both worked, he brought zero value to our home. Instead, we'd return to a chaotic apartment. A kitchen invariably messy, his detritus scattered everywhere. But the true horror was the bathroom. Countless times, he'd leave an unspeakable mess in the toilet bowl, completely neglecting to flush. And to think he'd impose on my girlfriend for laundry, when I, the one flushing his putrid deposits, rarely saw evidence of toilet paper. I am utterly convinced that man endured a constant, truly unbearable itch, a fitting consequence perhaps. However, I must concede one small point. He was genuinely good with our child, who remained impeccably clean until she transitioned to the potty. I will never forget the profound indignity and utter disrespect of his deplorable presence in our lives. His fleeting moments of usefulness were rare indeed. This precarious arrangement lasted for 4 more agonizing months. My time at her place grew exponentially, leading us to discuss securing an apartment together, consolidating our expenses, escaping 2 leases. Predictably, he then pressed us for a spare room. The sheer audacity, this demand sparked bitter, heated arguments. How could he suggest it? 4 months in, this deadweight still had no job. He who boasted of being a successful drug dealer in youth, a laughable claim even legally sell weed. He paraded himself as a professional drift car driver. Yet, on few occasions I foolishly entrusted him my vehicle, he repeatedly came perilously close to backing it into a light pole 4 times. Every disagreement, every minor spat escalated into chilling threats. I'm going to kick your ass. If I can't do it, I have an army of friends who will finish the job. The words sent shivers down my spine. Let me be unequivocally clear, I was no Navy SEAL. I had never undergone the rigorous combat training instilled by the Navy's special operations. His words were designed to intimidate, to terrorize, exploiting my lack of defense. This story, long kept quiet, still makes me shiver. I trained alongside special warfare operators and team guys, learning enough to qualify for special warfare. Yet my path was distinct. The rigorous crucible of Bud S, demanding supplemental training, individual specialty schools, and shrouded clandestine operations by agencies and JSOC, all remained a profound mystery, a journey I never truly embarked upon. My reality involved driving silent boats, soaring in choppers, leaping from planes into the unknown. Occasionally, a mission intertwined our paths with a SEAL team, a rare and intense convergence. More often, my duties centered on vital partner force operations or clandestine escort missions into forbidden territorial waterways. We would extract phantom divers from the chilling murk, their presence unspoken, their mission a carefully guarded secret, one of those operations demanding absolute silence. This dangerous, clandestine world explains why SEALs are revered as frogmen, masters of the deep. My body bore the scars of conflict. A profound injury left me struggling. While I could walk, albeit with persistent ache, the efficacy of my pain medication or the harsh grip of the weather would dictate my very ability to stand upright. There were days I relied solely on external support, lining, struggling. Yet despite this physical torment, the rest of my spirit, the core of my being, remained unbroken, a testament to battles fought externally and within my own fragile frame. My physical prowess was undeniable. I had refined my skills through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu during my Navy years, mastering the art of combat. With Filipino friends on base, I delved into Kali and Salat, a bond forged in shared practice, forever linking Lumpia to those memories. My career afforded me extensive CQB shooting courses, teaching me stances like center axis relock. I wasn't an action hero, but neither was I a helpless target. I possessed the chilling certainty that I could incapacitate him with my bare hands, a firearm entirely unnecessary. Yet my heart was captured by his sister, the woman I yearned to marry and whose child I longed to embrace. For her, I bit back my anger whenever he erupted. Days turned into weeks, punctuated by his sudden, irrational outbursts. The tension grew, a relentless pressure. Finally, my tolerance shattered. One night leaving for home, I deliberately retrieved my PS3 and television. His fury was immediate. He bellowed, declaring me banned from the apartment. But my girlfriend, with quiet authority, asserted her ownership, her rules, and his imperative to show respect. Then, a mere week later, a pivotal morning arrived. I had spent the night and we were rising early, for I needed to. My partner was on base, so the morning rush with our kiddo fell to me. We were buckling her into her car seat when I realized, with a frustrated sigh, my wallet was inside. Back I went, ascending to retrieve it. As I headed for the door, his voice, dripping with unearned authority, pierced the quiet. "You're cleaning those dishes when you get back," he declared. My blood instantly began to simmer. Those dishes were entirely his creation, a greasy, monumental legacy from a late-night mac and cheese binge that, for some unfathomable reason, had required a mixing bowl and at least 4 different wooden spoons. My gaze flickered from the chaotic pile to his smug face, then back to the abomination before finally resting on him. A torrent of pure, unadulterated rage, amplified by lingering pain and an exhaustion that gnawed at my bones, consumed me. My voice, a low snarl thick with venom, cut through the tense air. "You're high. Clean your own damned mess, you insolent fool, and never again will you presume to tell me what to do." I spun on my heel, executing a defiant about-face fueled by sheer will and desperate escape, storming out the door. I had descended maybe 6 or 7 steps of the creaking stairwell when the door above me burst open with an alarming force. A jolt of primal fear shot through me. I whirled, heart-pounding, to see him charging down, both hands outstretched, a terrifying fury in his eyes. He lunged, throwing me tea. This story, though years have passed, still makes me shiver with a cold dread. The world tilted violently, a shove sending me tumbling down the unyielding concrete steps. I landed hard on my back, the air knocked from my lungs in a painful gasp. My head slammed against the unforgiving deck, a jarring blow that sent stars across my vision, while a fresh, searing agony erupted through my leg. Before I could process the impact, he was on me, his cruel weight crushing, snapping me from my daze. A primal fury ignited within me then, eclipsing all pain. Gritting through the throbbing in my head and the fire in my leg, I fought with every ounce of strength, desperate to reverse our positions to regain some semblance of control. Once I was on top, I unleashed a storm of fists on his face. Lips split, eyes blurred with my blows, and his temple bore the brunt of my rage. I even gave his Adam's apple a deliberate, jarring tap, a silent promise of worse. I was beyond furious, consumed by a raw, unthinking rage. In that moment, I cared not if I ended him. One of us had to fall, and it was certainly not going to be me. But then, a piercing scream shattered the violent symphony. She arrived, drawn by the escalating chaos, witnessing my brutal retribution. Her terrified plea, "Get off him, stop," cut through the red haze of my bloodlust, compelling me to stop. The instant I pulled away, before I could even catch my breath, his voice, a snake's hiss, began, "Sister, he threatened to kill me. He attacked me and threw me down the stairs. I was just defending myself." The audacity of his immediate, venomous lies, even in that moment, was utterly sickening, a betrayal that cut deeper than any physical blow. The pathetic lie. ECAUSC, I asked him to bring back the PS3. She knew it was a blatant untruth, fully contradicted by the neighbor's camera, but in that instant her fury was a raw, palpable force, utterly justified. I drove her to work, then dropped the child at daycare. My next stop was base, where I faced a difficult explanation. My hands were marred, knuckles split and bleeding. A cold pack pressed against my head told its own silent story. My commanding officer, his gaze stern, offered to involve the police to help me press charges. I refused. He nearly ordered me to call the authorities, warning of a forced medical leave, a move I knew he technically couldn't enforce. But I met his gaze, replying I'd rather endure any consequence than risk losing my girlfriend by turning her brother over to the police. It was made starkly, brutally clear. I was a naive, foolish man, blinded by misguided loyalty, and this choice would inevitably haunt me. And he was right. Soon after, her brother delivered a chilling ultimatum. Either I would leave and she would end our relationship, or he would walk out of her and her daughter's life forever. This was his cruel demand, which, to be honest, was a truly devastating blow. I often relive that day, the raw wound of it never quite healing. In a twisted sense of fairness to my ex, the child's biological father, that true loser, had been the only constant male figure in her daughter's life since birth. The thought of him leaving, she reasoned, would be devastating for the little gremlin. My ex wanted to spare her that kind of pain, a pain I understood all too well, which ultimately meant I got the axe. Honestly, I'd have rather taken an actual axe to the heart, for what I felt was infinitely more excruciating. It is one thing to say goodbye to the woman you love, a bond severed by circumstances beyond your control. But to also say goodbye to the sobbing little girl I had yearned to adopt, to make my own, my very own child. No man truly human could have held back the tears. The thought of such a man chills me to the core. Broken, I retreated to my apartment. I meticulously gathered a small box of toys, keepsakes, and clothing items they'd left behind, waiting for the right moment to return them to her at work. I was utterly shattered, but the biological father, that callous individual, wasn't content with my suffering. He delighted in kicking me while I was down. He hadn't been bluffing. He genuinely had connections. Associates with extensive rap sheets and sinister intentions, and in time, I would discover the full extent of their malevolence. My struggle was far from over. It had, in fact, only just begun. The months after my breakup saw him unleash a sinister campaign of terror. I woke up one morning to discover my car utterly defiled. Blocked, wheels stripped, catalytic converter savagely severed. Windows smashed, hateful slurs and swastikas spray-painted across the wreckage. Though not Jewish and intimate with his sister for 6 months, I was branded KK and FG in their vile, utterly hateful scrawl. My insurance refused the $2,500 in repairs, a devastating financial blow that compounded my emotional distress. Police were called, a report filed, but surveillance proved utterly useless. Faces masked, hands gloved, no prints, no CSI for mere auto vandalism, leaving me to grapple with the profound sense of violation. 2 weeks later, an attempted arson attacked my front door. A masked, hooded figure hurled a lit Molotov cocktail at my welcome mat. Only the apartment's sprinklers actually *activating saved my home. I would have burnt inside, trapped. Jumping from the third-floor balcony was simply and truly impossible. The sheer terror of those moments still haunts my every waking thought, a chilling reminder of his relentless malice. The crime was grave. Police deeply desired its resolution, yet once more no usable prints were found, the perpetrator's face obscured from every camera. A month of unsettling quiet passed. My ex, hearing of the fire, contacted me. I, boiling with fury, declared my absolute certainty that her brother was responsible, though I lacked concrete proof. She vowed to speak with him. Strangely, the peace held until officers eventually arrived, seeking him precisely because I had undeniably named him as a person of interest. In the month or so since our bitter confrontation, she had forced him to secure employment or face immediate eviction. Consequently, he landed a part-time job at an auto shop known as the one you never choose, but freely recommend to those you despise. They cut every conceivable corner, making it a perfect haven for that loathsome individual. This reprieve, however, was fleeting, for the police soon appeared, their questions solely about that fire. The owners disliked law enforcement's presence as the company was unforgiving about their employees, so since he'd only been there a week or two, he got the boot. He truly appreciated that swift, decisive action. One night I was finally getting home from work. I had stopped at the gym on the way, working up a good sweat, then grabbed a quick, lonely bite to eat from the grocery store. I pulled my enterprise rental, my own car was still stubbornly in the shop, into my designated spot and walked toward my apartment building. Let me clarify a critical point. While I was over 21, legally owned guns, and held a concealed carry permit, on days I was on base, I did not carry my pistol. It's incredibly rare for anyone whose explicit job description doesn't include carries a pistol at all times to be allowed to carry a weapon on base. Since I was not about to leave a pistol unsecured in my car, and there simply weren't any places to securely store a weapon while I was working, I just opted to not take my gun with me. This crucial decision is also precisely why I did not have a pistol on me the morning Shitdick jumped me. I was utterly unarmed. I lived on the third floor, there was a fourth floor above me and stairs leading up. I kept quiet for a long time, but this story still makes me shiver. It was a normal evening until the terror truly began. Footsteps thundered down the stairs, too fast, too heavy. I turned, my breath catching, to see four figures, hoods drawn, masks chillingly blank, gloves concealing their sinister intentions. They advanced swiftly. My door, carelessly left ajar, became a gaping maw. I dropped my groceries, a futile attempt to slam it shut, but they were too quick. A foot blocked, a brutal shove, and they violently wedged themselves into my apartment. The next 14 seconds felt like an eternity, yet flashed by. We know the exact duration, timestamped by my neighbor's security camera, ironically installed after a previous fire. In my younger, more naive years, I kept a loaded pistol in a closet by the door, an irresponsible secret. As the first intruder surged forward, a primal instinct took over. My hand plunged into the darkness of the closet, grasping the cold steel. With a surge of adrenaline, I pushed the attacker back, stumbling myself, creating vital space. All four men now filled my doorway in the narrow hall. The first, body blocked by his accomplices, was already regaining his footing, his masked gaze fixed on me. The air crackled with unspoken threats. My hand tightened on the weapon, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm. The nightmare had truly begun, and I knew I had to fight for my life. NG to come toward me a second time, their intent unmistakable. My heart pounded, but my rigorous training took control. I raised my pistol, a SIG P226, chambered in .40 Smith & Wesson, and just as I heard one of them shriek "gun," a primal warning, my sights locked onto their forms and I began pulling the trigger. There was no hesitation, no thought of shooting to scare, no attempt to merely wound them. My aim was deliberate, body, head. It was exactly as I had been taught, every moment of preparation leading to this instant. The first assailant crumpled. The second, caught in the lethal path of rounds passing through his accomplice, then met my direct shot to his forehead. The third man froze, a sudden realization dawning on his face before absorbing four center-of-mass impacts. The fourth, already turning, desperate to flee, made it halfway through the exit before my magazine emptied into him, rounds tearing through the body of his companion and finding their mark. One might jump to conclusions thinking he was running, that's murder. Yet the police saw it differently. The investigators, after painstaking review, brought no charges. Why? Because he survived. The first three recipients of my unyielding defense, tasting the high-velocity impact, were not so fortunate. The first I kept quiet for a long time, but this story still makes me shiver. The events of that night are seared into my memory, a brutal symphony of fear and desperation that echoes. The first man's very essence splattered across the second, a horrifying sight. The seconds, in turn, painted my wall in a grotesque tableau of what happens when boundaries are crossed. My .40 S and W tore through the third man's heart and both of his lungs, leaving him utterly lifeless, pronounced dead on the scene. Then came the fourth, my ex's so-called brother, a truly vile individual. Of the three bullets that found him, one merely grazed his backside, another buried itself deep in his rightest cheek, but the third, that one struck his spinal cord precisely at the kidney's height. It shattered his spine, obliterating his lucrative career in competitive breakdance and bicycling. Paralyzed from the navel down, his world utterly crumbled. A permanent catheter and a diaper became his constant companions, catching the only useful byproduct his broken body now offered. He would never walk again, never experience intimacy again, a fitting punishment. Discharged from the hospital, his freedom was agonizingly short-lived. Prison awaited, along with 3 counts of manslaughter, the blame for his fallen comrades laid squarely on him. Conspiracy charges followed, ensuring his future remained as broken as his body. Justice in its rawest, most brutal form had indeed been served. The charges were truly severe: murder, assault, and battery. He also faced reckless endangerment, directly from my firearms discharge within an apartment complex. A shot fired across the hall from an open door I was aiming towards. He would never breathe free air again, his liberty irrevocably lost. I desperately wanted a happily ever after, that she would take me back, that we would marry and I'd adopt her child, perhaps even having our own. But she refused. She did not. Within 24 cruel hours, she declared herself terrified of me. She forbade my presence near her or her child, vowing to call the police if I ever approached her home or workplace, that familiar target, a place I genuinely enjoyed. She branded me a murderer. Worse, she accused me of sixing the cops on him, deliberately instigating a response purely to create a twisted pretext for me to shoot him. She conveniently ignored his arson, the vandalism, and the various chilling threats he'd hurled at me for months. I never saw her face again. She blocked me on everything, every connection severed. Her family blocked me too, a final, painful severing. My world shattered into silent, isolated fragments. Her abandonment wounded me deeply. She vanished, changing her number, transferring to a different Target store, and within months she relocated to a new apartment in an unfamiliar part of town. 8 long years have passed since that terrifying shooting, yet her silence endures. I know she's alive. Friends of friends confirm she married in 2020, welcomed a second child, and is now happy. More power to her, I suppose. My own happy ending, that elusive white picket fence, never materialized. Believe it or not, taking 3 lives, even for a person trained for war and conditioned for such grim possibilities, profoundly distorts your reality. Especially when it unfolds not on the battlefields of Baghdad or Abbottabad, but within the sanctuary of your own home. There's a vast, chilling emotional chasm between killing, for work, and taking a life because your very existence hung in the balance. I suffered terribly from PTSD. For a full year after recovering my firearms, I couldn't even touch a gun without succumbing to debilitating panic attacks. The Navy, to their immense credit, was incredibly supportive throughout, aiding with the arduous journey towards psychological recovery. I've carried the weight of that morning for years, the memory of the brutal assault I endured. The subsequent investigation brought little solace, especially hearing the commanding officer, who had, with cruel disregard, labeled me an apex dumbass, give his cold statement. I was offered the chance to live on base with protective detail until the danger passed, but I vehemently declined. I needed to move forward on my own terms to regain control. 8 years have since woven a rich, new tapestry for my life. I've retired from service, now thriving impressively in the private sector. My own LLC, a cybersecurity and site security consulting firm, generates substantial income. Life has granted me simple joys too, like the tranquility of boating. My partner of 3 years is the most loving, unwavering source of support I could ever dream of. I know without a shadow of a doubt they have my back no matter what threats may emerge. We're even discussing starting a family before time slips away. My life finally felt truly complete. But then, just the other day, a chilling yet deeply satisfying wave of vindication washed over me. A Google alert, meticulously set 8 years ago, triggered. The notification displayed Skidmark McDipshit's full name, followed by one potent word. Obituary. It appears that within the confines of prison, someone eventually grew sick and tired of the incessant, arrogant posturing of that man in a wheelchair, who foolishly believed nobody would ever dare touch him, ever again. I recall the brutal truth. His own wheelchair, a weapon, caved in his skull. Their shoes finished him, mercilessly stomping out his last breath. That, of course, wasn't mentioned in the sanitized obituary. Instead, it spoke of a bright, lovable boy who, in early adulthood, stumbled into hardship and then prison. The true shock, however, was learning he was survived by a daughter, a child none of us had ever known. A harsh fate for her, though I suspect she never truly knew her biological father. Perhaps in truth that was for the best. I had to share every detail, no omissions. This chilling testament leaves its dark truths to resonate.